Welcome to A
and Jay
Podcast.
podcast.
Thank you guys for tuning in. This is our second episode.
Yes,
First episode
sir.
was a success. Everyone loved it. I mean, there's so many learning lessons that we had and how we can make it better, but also just the support that we got from you guys, the comments,
Appreciate you.
engagement on it.
Appreciate
We
you.
appreciate it. We appreciate it. And we're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep building it. We're gonna keep making it better. And yeah, what'd you think, Jonell, about the first
Man,
podcast? How'd you
it
feel?
was so dope seeing the feedback, seeing how like this was long overdue, I think, you know what I'm saying, in terms of this, the expertise and the things like that, and just trying to provide this knowledge to our community. So I'm excited, man, for what we're doing so far.
Definitely, definitely. I think like there's so many like people with similar mindset that like found value out of it and just like hearing hearing their similar experiences through their feedback was like super helpful. So, yeah, man. So I'm curious for this podcast, we want to talk about like how did you end up here? Like what was the thing that got you to become a financial advisor? Why did you even start your own business?
Man, it just clicked for me. For a long time, I wanted to do something where I was just helping people. And for me, I always saw my dad. He had established himself in business and things like that as a financial advisor himself. And I always saw how he was always just working with people. I said, I love that, you know what I'm saying? But I was like, I want to be my own boss. I want to do my own thing. So I never really paid too much attention initially. But then what happened was, as time went on, I just saw him in terms of his income, his growth, his mindset. It changed so drastically. I was like, man, there's something different about being a business owner and working for yourself. But then not only just that, I was around a lot of entrepreneurs, right? I did entrepreneurship in high school. I did it in college. That's how we met in the Hill Entrepreneur Program. And even seeing other entrepreneurs where they were growing too as well. But I think the catalyst for me was really before the pandemic, right before I was working as a paralegal. 'Cause I was planning on going to law school, and the guy I was working for, I loved him to death, but I felt like I wasn't seeing my full potential. And because of that, I was like, man, God, if you give me a chance, I'm gonna take it. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, oh my goodness, I can't keep running. You know what I'm saying? I saw how all my friends, peers, my community were just being scammed by people online, just talking about all these terrible different products or just selling them one stick solutions that weren't really actual financial planning or strategies. And when I saw that, I said, okay, I need to do something. There's no more waiting here. And from there, I just kind of took that leap of faith, got my licenses, developed myself, and just started working. It was hard at first, but it really started to go from there. And now, after 3 years so far and going, I'm very thankful I took that risk. You know what I'm saying? I advocate to anybody, even if you don't do it and do like me, at least do something part-time. Try to find a way to kind of create your own business and establish that to kind of go and build yourself up. So that was a little bit for me, man. But
What about, I'm curious, when you said like your dad specifically, you saw his growth when he was working on his business. Well, and you mentioned, I assume like you had a similar experience too. Like, what about like pursuing a business or pursuing these endeavors? You feel like results in a lot of personal growth as well. Like, why do you think that is?
man, the amount of failure I saw my dad go through and struggles and, all the different challenges that he had to face, it really changed my mindset on growth. Because normally when you think about growth, you just think, oh, I see someone that's successful. They're my favorite athlete, or, that's my favorite business owner. But the amount of failure you have to go through to get to that point, you have to learn lessons, and through those lessons you learn what not to do again or what to avoid or how to do things better in terms of your strategies, your structures, your solutions. And that was the one thing that I took away, because when I saw my dad's income increasing, and his business increasing, the people he was helping increasing, it just showed me that he was just getting better at his craft every single day. And that really pushed me too. I was like, oh man, that's what life's about, is getting better at your craft, in the time that you do have. You know what I mean?
It's
So that,
almost
that was a
like
big thing.
it's almost like the goal is not to win. It's like how many failures can you stack up? Like, like because you
Correct.
go through them and just like it's crazy. It's like counterintuitive if you think about it. You end up failing more than you actually win at the beginning, at least. But then every
Correct.
time you fail, you just improving your likelihood of winning. And at some
Correct.
point, like the flip switches. But yeah, it's crazy that how it's counterintuitive to like how logic works, but that makes sense, man.
But then again, when you think about logic, it's like that's maybe the logical answer to business, right? Is a lot of times, even when we read business books, a lot of times it comes from other people, whether someone's learning from someone's failures or they're taking them. Like I remember the first book I read on entrepreneurship was Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Mm,
And the takeaway I got from the start was he had a poor dad and a rich dad.
mm,
And his poor dad was his own dad, but his dad never wanted to take risk. His dad was always in the same mindset where it was very fixed on a certain type of goal that would just keep him just where he was at, just to be complacent, just stay right where he's at. But the one thing I saw was for the rich dad, you know, that was his, his other friend's dad, where it was like, hey, you need to do certain things to develop and grow yourself. And that's when I was like, oh my goodness, you can see there's a two different shifts in a mindset in terms of how people think and they process things.
mm.
But even for you, like, what was your catalyst, man? What was your moment where it was like, hey, this is my time to kind of step up and step out of what I'm currently doing right now to start my own business?
Yeah, I mean, for me specifically, I don't think it was business wasn't the goal. It
Mm,
was it was almost like it was a result of what I was doing.
mm,
'Cause I realized when I was in high school, college, I followed a script, and so I did not get an opportunity to really allow my curiosity to flourish and allow
mm,
myself to truly learn out of my own will, right? And so, funny enough, I heard my brother one time say like, let me, as a joke, he was saying it, let me make all the mistakes I can till I'm 30, and then I'll figure my life out after that. And I think he was talking about stock advice, but but in my head I was like, dang, it's so true. Like, when have I really allowed myself to like mess up as many times as I want to,
mm,
and not in a irresponsible way, but like learn through it. And I was like,
mm,
and that was the flip for me where I was like, you know what? I want to learn everything. So
correct.
every time I met a business owner, I would always chat about what their problems were and how I can help them, like how their systems work. And so naturally, I just offered my services, which was, I didn't even have any at that point, right? I was just like, oh, you want to help? Like, we have a good friend of ours, Chris Swift. I was like,
Mm,
oh, yeah, I'm down to shoot your video using my phone. Like, I'm down to, fix up your, gym equipment. Like, I'll do whatever. Like, I just want to learn. I want to understand how people work. I want to understand how things work. Even at some point, like when I was, you know, playing volleyball, I would have conversations with the club owner and be like, you know what, like your social media could be so much better. Like, let me help beef it up for you. And so just like really just allowing my like curiosity to run wild. And at some point you start learning every time you do something. It's like
mm,
learn how to run a social media account better. You learn how to really drive uh revenue revenue producing activities, right? And so I started getting better at marketing. Like it wasn't just about content, it was about ads, it was about uh improving like conversions at each stage of the sales funnel.
mm,
Right? So I just kept learning and learning and learning to the point where it's like I have a vast understanding of different systems that can be implemented to improve businesses, right? Not just in terms of sales, but also technologies that you can improve, you can implement to improve operations.
mm,
And so ultimately, like there was no breaking point. It was just me following my curiosity. I just wanted to know. I just wanted to learn. And even to this day, like like so the meme came up in my mind. That to this day,
to
meme,
this day.
to this day. No, like I just let my curiosity run wild just because there's so much to learn. Like we're still so young, and I mean, 10 years from now, if we just continue to learn and put ourselves in situations where we do fail and we learn through it, man, we'll be like unbeatable. And so
Amen.
ultimately that's what it was. My breaking point is when I allow myself to really learn and be curious, something that I
Mm.
didn't do as much when I was a kid. Um, and I was like, so that was it, man.
That's good. That's good. And I know you said something that was so key, and I want you to elaborate on this. When you said you were following a script, like what did that mean? What did that look like? Was it people that told you a script? Was it something that you just saw that people were doing that you just said, let me just follow this or be like this? Like, why did you have that script for so long?
Well, I think at some point, like you're just trying to fit in, right? So as a
Mm,
person, you're trying to do the right things that you hear, right? Which is like, go to college, do all these right things, do these clubs and activities. And I'm not saying these are wrong by any means.
yeah.
They're good things. But I don't think as a kid you have a perspective on why you're doing what you're doing. You're just doing it because people are telling you to do it, right? But I don't know if you've noticed when you're in college, the folks who took a break, like a gap year,
Hmm.
folks who are like coming back to college 10 years after they graduated high school, those
Hmm.
were one of the most focused group of individuals in college because
That's
they
real.
have had time off from college to build perspective on why they should be pursuing this degree in the first place.
Hmm.
Whereas most of my peers, myself included, we just doing it because like that's what we are told. It's like, okay, boom, boom, boom. Like there's value in these things, but we just did not have the perspective on it. And so I think it's just the lack of perspective is the reason why I don't think I allowed myself to be curious when I was young. Just following the
Mm,
script, like do X, Y, and Z. I'm good, and you're trying to fit in for the most part. Um, but at some point you'll start questioning like, why am I doing this? At least
yeah. Yeah.
that's what ended up with me. And so questioning those things led me down this road. But yeah, I think you end up doing it because you're just trying to fit in for the most part and gain approval from other people. And
Mm,
you know, you have to put yourself in a vulnerable situation where you aren't part of the majority. Um,
that's good.
move from it.
And that's real. I think a lot of times people get stuck into that case where it's like, okay, I see this person doing this. I see this person doing this. I'm gonna try and fit somewhere in the middle of that. And then you kind of look back and it's like, man, we're all in the same place. Or
Right.
if you take a different route where now you've become better off or you're doing something that you're actually passionate about, and now it's just like, man, why did it take so long? And that was also
Mm,
another thing too, as well, where I had that same doubt you had. It was like, man, I should just like way earlier. But it's like
right.
I just didn't know. I wasn't thinking about that because like you said, I was following that script. Everyone was doing a certain way. And I thought that was what success was. But it's also a level of like I wasn't really passionate about those things. You know what I'm saying? And when
An
you're not
example of like something that you did that you didn't even know why you're doing.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. Initially, I really just wanted to go to law school, just to go to law school, and there was like no purpose behind it. Like I knew I wanted to go to law school for the reasons of helping people, like I said again, but there was no intention behind it. Like I wanted to do so many different things. I had like five, six, seven different things I want to do, and that's impossible. As a lawyer, you have to really focus on one thing.
Right.
Now that I'm in my space now, I know as a financial advisor, I would go back just to law school just to say, for instance, understand wills and trust, so I can help my clients to basically estate plan to kind of make sure that they pass on generational wealth through their legacies and things
Mhm.
like that. But at the time, I just want to do everything: real estate, wills and trust, maybe some
Yeah.
criminal. It's like that's too much. You know what I'm saying? You're doing everything just to look good,
Yeah.
or just to fit in. But then it's like those same people don't know what they want. They're lost. And you're trying to follow the blind, and the blind is leading the blind. You know what I'm saying? You don't know where you're going. Compared to say if you have your expertise, I have my expertise, and you're going one way, I'm going another way, and you can say, hey, watch out for this, because I'm doing this. Or I can say, watch out for this, I'm doing this. It helps so much. You know what I'm saying? And my question to you is, you know what I'm saying, like, when you were an employee, especially coming out of school and you were kind of following a script, what was the thing where it was like the shift that you had to have for yourself to kind of say, for instance, going from an employee to a business owner?
Um, Great question. I feel like outside of the curiosity part, right? At some point you're being curious, you're doing all these different things. You kind of have to have a shift in mindset where you're like, okay, I need to do something with this stuff that I've learned,
Mm,
right? So of course I, helped out people with certain services, but how can I ultimately consistently start doing it? And for that, you kind of have to switch from like an employee to a business owner mindset.
hmm
It's not as easy as you think, because all of a sudden now you're the driver. You're your own manager, you're your own CEO, you're your own employee, right? Until you make that first hire, like you're your own everything. So you're gonna have to wake up and then create your list of items that need to do. You have to create your 3 month plan, 6 month plan, a year plan. You gotta stick to it. You gotta have your own performance reviews. You gotta have your whereas like in a
Hmm.
traditional setting, right, as an employee, you have all of that. Right.
Correct.
Again, I don't want to make it sound like being an employee is wrong or anything like that, but it's
Yeah.
just I'm sharing my perspective as what it was like being an employee and what it was like not being one. And so
Hmm.
there's perks that come with both of them, but there's also things that are hard that come with both of them. In this case,
Correct.
like I can clock off at 5 and I don't have to think about my work when I was an employee. But as a business owner, you start thinking about it more. You spend like your nighttime thinking about it. You'll be waking up thinking like, what should I be doing? You'll be spending most of your day thinking actually, like what should I do? How should I do this? And so like I feel like the biggest mindset shift that I needed to have is like accountability
Mm.
from being an employee to a business owner. Because having your own business is like a double-edged sword because now you have
Correct.
all the time to do anything you want, but that's also means you have all the time here for you to do anything that you want. Like you could sleep in all day if you wanted to. You could start your work at 12 p.m. if you wanted to, but then like you still got to be responsible enough to actually make progress, right?
Correct.
So being accountable, being your own manager, being your own CEO, setting plans, setting action items for the day,
Hmm.
things like that. That's like the biggest mindset shift that I had to have um, when I started really taking business seriously.
Yeah.
So, obviously there are other items that comes with being a business owner, right? Like, how do you set up these LLCs? How do you do all these different things? But that'll just kind of come as you go, right? Like
Hmm.
as you're learning about things, you're like, okay, what do I need to do? What systems do I need to set up so my business can take off? Whether it's my marketing systems, whether my outreach system, my sales system.
Hmm.
That'll just come in time. And I'm sure you know a lot about this, especially because you interact with a lot of business owners in terms of helping them set up their, you know, LLCs or 401ks and things like that. I'm curious, like outside of like the mindset stuff, like what are things that like a business owner or like when you become a business owner that you got to keep in mind that are not
Hmm.
necessarily mindset related?
Yeah, I would definitely say the biggest thing is creating that organization, knowing what you want to do, knowing your structure, right? There's different ones from sole proprietorships, whether you're the sole person to LLCs, S corps, C corps, general partnerships, I'm saying limited partnerships, etc. But you have to know what you want to be based off of that so you can determine how you're going to be taxed, right? How you're going to be structured. From there, it's a situation of, okay, I need to keep things on file. One thing for sure, if you do have an LLC out there, the biggest thing is that there's a new form you have to fill out this year. It's the
Mm,
BOIR form. It's for free. You can go on there. You have to fill it out before the end of the year if you have an LLC. If you don't fill this out, they will hit you with a fine every single day. So make sure you fill this form out. But once you have created your organization, you've created that structure, you need to have a business plan. You need to make sure that you're kind of creating a strategy where it's like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is who I'll market to based off the product. And then from there, I need to also make sure I'm creating certain systems, like you said, marketing. That's where someone like you would come in to help them to kind of structure their marketing, structure what they need to do to plan out certain things to make sure they're getting out there, whether that's in person, right? Maybe business to business. Maybe say, for instance, it's individuals, one-on-ones. Maybe say, for instance, it's a combination of those things. You have to figure out where you want to market to. Nothing too is you need to really map this stuff out. Like you said earlier, you hit on so many points in terms of making sure you have a structure. You need to know, okay, maybe on this Monday, I'm going to have time to go and talk to this person that I set up a meeting for, have my plan structured out, really kind of block it out. Have a Google Calendar, have something where you can block out your schedule, which think it makes it way easier to kind of get things done. I know you do this very well where you block out your calendar and you pick different things to do in the week and to set up. Another big thing, especially as an entrepreneur, especially when you're starting your business, you have to get that out there in person. You can't do everything on social media. Like my biggest thing is I try to at least minimum once a week try to be at some type of networking event. Whether
mm,
say for instance I'm in a place where I'm going to see other business owners, to even say, for instance, I'm in a situation where I'm going to see other individuals, whatever it may be. I have to be in a place where I'm networking. I've met some people, I've connected with someone where I'm improving my communication skills. And then from
Right.
there,
Have to be on the boots on the ground at the early stages, right? Like
correct,
even obviously like I got to do this as well. Me and Jonell, we go into these network events.
correct,
Like you kind of have to be there in person to really build that reputation for yourself. That's like, like word of if you like any business out there, word of mouth is the biggest form of marketing out there, right?
man,
There's like these other, content marketing, ads, things like that. But word of
man,
mouth spreads like wildfire, right?
correct,
And so when you have nothing at the beginning, that is like the most powerful thing that you
correct.
can create. So,
Correct. I know there's a young lady, she's actually in our program.
mm,
One day we may have her on here too as well. But she was basically just networking like crazy. I just see her out there once a week. She's out there talking to people. And what it showed me was, hey, you got to stay hungry too, right? That's another thing too, as a business owner. You can't get comfortable, you can't get complacent, like, okay, I have my business, they'll come to me. That's not how it works. If you look at, say, it's a place like Subway, for instance, I know you've worked there in the past, they
yeah,
always have ads. They
yeah,
send ads to you 24/7, whether it's through the mail, you see a commercial, you see something on Instagram, something, they're always putting ads out there letting you, remind you, hey, we're here, we're open for business. Because you're not really thinking about getting a sub per se, you can make a sub at home. But you see what they have online, it's like, you know what? I don't make the sub, I'll let them make it for me. So you have to constantly be marketing. So you're generating business. So there's so many elements where I tell people all the time, you have to look at all these different elements. That's just a few of the things that you could do. We can go another time into more comprehensive detail in terms of what that looks like in terms of
yeah.
structuring a business. But those are some like the basics to have to start off with.
It's like you gotta set up your basic stuff like LLCs, and at the beginning, the biggest thing that you gotta do is outreach sales.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta sell your thing,
Mm-hmm.
outreach and sales. And so yeah, that's a great point that you touched on. And it's funny that you say this because I've done a lot of marketing for other businesses, but I realize personally that's the area that I gotta really focus on in order for me to really take the next step.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta start consistently generating revenue for my own business,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so how can I simplify the model so it's repeatable, scalable? Um, that way, it's easier to market. Because
Correct.
as of right now, like the business that I've worked with has been a lot of custom work. And so, yeah, like figuring out your marketing and outreach systems is like your first thing after you set up your basic business stuff. If anything,
Correct.
I would say you might even come before it, just as a proof of concept, yeah, because
Correct.
you gotta sell your thing. Like you gotta know if people are interested in it, right?
Correct.
Um, so yeah, man, 100%.
Nah,
So
that's so good. And I'll even say too as well, another thing, just a shameless plug. You got to know your finance. You got to have a budget. You got to know what you're doing,
yeah,
especially if you're starting out and you don't really have a lot of capital initially. Whether you have to kind of stay with some roommates, go back home with your folks, or if you are living at home with your folks, even better. Or say, for instance, if you have a spouse that maybe makes enough income to kind of hold over until that time, really you have to know the capital piece is a big piece too as well,
what do you
when you're
feel
coming up with
like
your
a big
finances.
mistake? What do you feel like a big mistake that like a lot of uh you know entrepreneurs do with their finances earlier on in the business when they're starting off? Like what kind of mistakes do you see people doing out there? Just they're starting their business and where are they messing up?
They
And
turn
where
to gunslingers.
what was that?
They turn to gunslingers. They just start going out there, and they have no support, right?
Mm.
Like they don't have a place where they can stay. They just like, okay, you know what? If I go into debt, I go into debt. That's a terrible idea because now you're banking on the fact that you're forcing yourself into a corner, but you don't even know, like you said, you don't have a strategy. You don't know what you're actually doing, right? And the biggest thing too, as well, is not only just that, sometimes you don't have the right coach, you don't have the right people in your circle to kind of help you and support you too as well, to set those things up. I know
Yeah.
I always tell people, like, if you're married, make sure you have those conversations with your spouse. If you're single, make sure you have people in your community that can support you. I think it's very essential. I think for myself personally, like I live with my parents on purpose because for me, it's like I'm going to stack every single dollar I can make while, say, for instance, I'm establishing my business. So I
Mhm.
don't have to go into debt by having a place in these different things. And I'd be like, oh man, like you should have this. And for me, it's like I know my sanity and I know what I want to do with my money. So I have my own game plan. Some people they want to do all these extra things and show up. I don't want to show up to anybody. I don't, I just want people to know that, hey, look, I'm serious about taking care of you and your finances, and that's
Mhm.
all that matters. You know what I'm saying?
It's funny that you say that because like that was me. Like I mean we talked
Mm,
about it the last podcast and we just going straight in like throwing all the money at the things. Um but yeah, I'm grateful that you know you shared that information with the viewers, but also like reminder to myself that like, you know, be strategic about how you're using money. It's I mean you got to take risks in business for sure.
hmm.
But then like, you know, you got to also be able to mitigate the risk and figure out the plan. There's a balance there, and the balance
Correct.
um it varies from person to person. So,
hmm And that's the biggest thing. And I think everyone's business is different, right?
mhm.
Your business is different than my business. And then some business are a little bit easier than others, right? For mine, people have to see experience. They have to see things in me that make sense. Where it's like, okay, I can trust the guy as a financial advisor and what his credentials. For you, it's like, you know what you need to do. You're a marketer. You can help me. You just put a
Yeah,
system in place for me, like just help my business. You know what I'm saying? So it's like two different elements. Like when I deal with clients that are making millions, like or even a client that's basically making only 40,000, 50,000. It's the same thing because it's their money. It's like, can I trust you? Can I give you my money? For you, it's like, okay, you could have someone that's making 10 million, whatever. But for them, it's like, I need to make sure like he just has the marketing down. If he has the marketing, I'm good. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
for sure.
you have to know your business too as well.
Exactly. Yeah, man. Well, anyways, Jonell, this has been a great episode.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
we keep crushing in the next few episodes. We'll keep them coming out every week. And then down the line, we'll also start having some guests coming over.
Yes,
So,
sir.
what were some of your takeaways in this episode?
Man, I would say some of the biggest takeaways it's that mindset shift, right? Switching and changing some of the things that you maybe normally see. And, right now, if you don't have that, try and figure out what that is. Find your catalyst, find your why in terms of why you want to go into business. That was kind of my biggest takeaway from what you were talking about. But how about you as well?
Yeah, personally, I think like the whole financial literacy as an entrepreneur is very important. And I'm realizing that now based on my past mistakes and also having conversation with you about this now, but how important it is to strategize, not just in terms of your business plan, but also your financial plan, because it's not really tied to your business, but it's tied to your personal life. Because if
Hmm.
you're a business owner, your business is part of your life now. Like there's no like you can't split the two. It blends in.
Correct.
Like your finances are directly tied to your business. Whereas like, you know, you if you're an employee, like you know, you get your check and you keep going, right? Like you can kind of draw that line.
Correct.
But as a business owner, you're pulling money straight out of your personal income, personal savings. And so having that financial plan is paramount. And it's something that I'm going to do like when when this podcast is over, I'm going to make sure I spend some time to really reflect on how I'm going to um how to plan my finances for the next 3 months so I can adequately support the growth that I want to have in my business, but also um not be reckless with it.
I love it. I love
So
it, man. Appreciate you, my brother.
good episode as always. Feel free to like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell notification, whatever else is out there. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon.